through his medical practice and charitable endeavors. He is among a top credentialed and elite group of physicians nationwide with expertise in internal medicine, geriatric medicine, hospice and palliative medicine, post-acute and long-term care. In November 2022, Representative Lalani was elected to represent 76th House District. Healthcare and public health legislation are among major priorities for Representative Lalani. Other areas of focus include supporting Texas education and educators in the state at all levels, common sense gun policies, accessibility and transparency in government, and responsible stewardship of the state's natural resources. And finally, I'd like to introduce the Honorable Ro Khanna, the U.S. Representative of California's 17th District. He is representing the area that is known as Silicon Valley. He was elected to his first term in Congress in 2016. Representative Khanna is the ranking member of the House Armed Services Subcommittee on Cyber and Innovative Technologies, serves on both the House Select Committee on the U.S.-China Relationship and the National Security Commission on Emerging Biotechnology. He is the founder of the No PAX Caucus and is the chair of the Congressional India Caucus. Ro recently led a historic bipartisan delegation to India to meet with Indian Prime Minister Modi and other senior government and business leaders to discuss strengthening the strategic U.S.-Indian partnership while remaining committed to protecting minority and human rights. During his first term in Congress, Representative Khanna successfully passed the first Four Powers Act in congressional history, which led to the end of the United States practice of refueling Saudi warplanes bombing innocent civilians in Yemen. And with that, Jazakallah Kharoon, and thank you to each and every one of you being on today's panel. And so, just want to get started, I think it's very important when people hear the terms public policy, it always surrounds a bit of confusion, technicality, something that's foreign, and sometimes just angry. So, how did you find your way through that cloud of mystery and intrigue, but also just to get to the point where you are? And I want to start with athletes first, and then we'll welcome our state rep and our congressman.
So you had just to reiterate, like your question is how did we get to this point, right?
Yeah, how did you choose your line?
Of course. So Assalamu alaikum everyone. My name is Nada Hanuti. For those who don't know, I've been with Engage for the past 5 years, and Engage is a wonderful institution where we have a 501c3, C4, and a PAC, and that means we do voter education, political advocacy, and we endorse and support candidates who have our values. And just a little bit of background on my end. Again, I'm a Palestinian American Muslim woman, and for me, my identity is my passion because it informs my work. I was very lucky to have grown up in a very politically charged household. I come from generations of activists. So at the age, I would say maybe at 5 years old, I attended my very first protest. In that young age, I learned early on that people were oppressed and other people were doing the oppression. And that was enough to set the fire in my stomach. And ever since then, I knew that was my calling. So over the past couple of years, I've learned how to responsibly and proactively pass and implement policy, and this is why I'm here today.
So my name and bio has been mentioned, but just to reiterate, I am from Salt Lake City, Utah. Thank you for representing. I was a former Chicagoan. My kids went to elementary school in Naperville, and somehow the mountains called and we ended up in Utah. I wish my life, the work that I'm doing was a linear process. It's not. I am a mom of 3 kids, very active kids who were looking into their identity when we moved to Utah at that stage with Arab Spring was happening. And all of a sudden, they became the small, brown kids amongst a sea of lily white kids trying to explain their identity. And they were not Arab, but they were just Muslims. And it so happened that by the time my daughter was 15, she started a legislative process to introduce a climate bill in state of Utah, which stated that climate is real science, climate change is real science, and if you would believe that our legislature said that it was not. And to see her process in that legislative session, seeing, realizing that Utah was full of once again, it's a leading state for Mormonism. So the representatives are almost 90%, 95% of the state legislature are Mormons, and there are more Johns in the legislature than all of Democrats. So understanding that entire process and seeing that the economic system of Utah, Muslims were more represented in the refugee and economically depressed areas than not, and that there was this feeling of helplessness towards Muslims. And that brought me to use my privilege and understanding of these systems, and it started, organizing as a young, parent-teacher meetings, and then moving on. So 4 years ago, we established Utah Muslim Civic League, and the first thing we did was register Muslims as voters. Without our voting powers, we're nothing. It did surprise us a few months later to realize that we had 45% Muslims registered as Republicans, and 14% as Democrats, and the rest as independent. And that set the tone of the way we were going to do policy work in Utah. I'm going to go deeper into the kind of work we've done and what it took to organize, but I want to pass on the mic for further introductions.
Well, thank you for inviting me to ISNA. It's a great honor to be on this panel with wonderful advocates who really do the Herculean work of bringing change in society, and of course with the state representative as well. It's an honor to be on. For me, I never thought I would be in elected politics, but after I graduated law school in 2001, it was at the height, right at the beginning of the Iraq War, and you had the Patriot Act at the same time. And I had a classmate in law school whose brother was told to go back to Pakistan and detained. Anytime I went through a metal detector in this country, I was being pulled aside for heightened screening. And so I ran an anti-Iraq war primary campaign when I was 27 against a long-time person who was a Democrat, a chairman of the Foreign Policy Committee, but who had voted for the war in Iraq and who had voted for the Patriot Act. And I got crushed. I got 19% of the vote, he got 71%. But in doing that, I realized, this country, you can have a voice and you can stand up. And that really, of all the campaigns I've run, I'm probably proudest of that one because it was standing so clearly on principle. And for those out there who want to get involved, my only advice is keep at it, and eventually your turn and chance will come.
Assalamualaikum. Dr. Sulaiman Lalani. So I feel that I am blessed that I was subconsciously groomed for this and this calling that happened. As the other esteemed guest has mentioned too, that if you would have asked me a few years back that would you run for the office or what politics is, I was very far away from any of those. A physician doing his patient care. But looking back now, growing up, service was part of our the family values, and we were raised. My father always said that when somebody comes and asks for help, the first thought ever that should come to your mind is, Shukr alhamdulillah. And the second thought that should come to your mind is, how? And he said it's a very fine line between the ability to help and asking for help. And that moment, the God has blessed you to be on this side of the line that you are able to help. So if you have an ability, then it is your responsibility. And that's how we were doing. And I was, when after that in my medical practice, we've been, doing service. I believe everybody has a servant heart and everybody is doing that. service somewhere. So we were doing charity clinics. I was part of the mainstream other non-profit and advocacy organization. I was an ambassador to U.S. Congress for Alzheimer's, that's where I learned how the legislation to be done. President of Fort Bend Exchange Club, which is like a service club like Rotary or whatnot. And then you are doing a medical practice, and my specialty is geriatrics, senior people. So doing that for 25 years, I've seen this human face of our healthcare system delivery failure pretty much every day. What I mean by that is, you all know, we do not lack in research, technology, treatment, and who's who of the world can fly in and get the treatment here. But our own people cannot cross the street to get the treatment. And that's what it occurred to me that, when we were graduating, we were told that be very proud wearing this white coat because now you're going to serve humanity. And I think I took it one step forward and said, as a physician, my responsibility does not stop by taking care of ailing patients, but I need to look into ailing policies and ailing society, and that's how we made the jump on this part. Because, doing all those things that we were doing, we were changing, maybe helping 50 people, 100 people, but by bringing a good policy, we can change the generation. So that's how my journey started into this part.
There's a certain element that I think Dr. Lalani just mentioned that I heard reflected each and every one of your stories, and that's having a trust in the government, and in this case, the state government, to be able to still work for yourselves, your families, your communities. But one of the things that we're very much up against is understanding that to this day in the country's 200 plus years of existence, each and every one of us that's reflected in our skin tones have known the government has not necessarily seen or worked with us. And even in this very way, for the advocates working alongside legislators to those who are in elected office, there's still this question of how do we make policy work for us. So I'm curious in terms of, in what ways have you been able to, in your service so far, be able to start to build those blocks of trust, albeit understanding that we probably have long ways to go. And I'm going to actually throw it to, Donna, you seem very intense, so I'll let you ask that first.
Thank you so much, Better. We do this work to hold our government accountable, right? We are minority communities and we don't have the advantages that the majority does. And how do we do this accountability? It starts from the grassroots. In order to create long sustainable movements, in order to create proactive policy, you cannot do this without the grassroots work. And MEH, we pride ourselves on there. And what do I mean by the grassroots, right? It's about canvassing door to door to your constituents, educating them about their voting rights, educating them about persuading them to elect candidates who share our values, and most importantly, learning about issues that are affecting them. In MEH, we really center on passing people policy, right? And we cannot do that without our community members. We need to listen to them and we need to know their issues in order to craft and support policy issues that represent them. And then we need to work with them, meet their elected officials, and hold them accountable. It's not about trust, it's about accountability.
Well, I think the challenge for most American community, minority communities, is a higher bar to break in and to be heard. And there is a harder bar not to be marginalized. If Summer Lee or Ilhan Omar or Rashida Tlaib say the same exact thing as someone who is older, white, Christian, they're going to get a lot more scrutiny for the same exact sentence, because there is not the same trust and institutional familiarity. So this is a big challenge for all of us. And I think to Nada's point, one of the things we need to do is be deep in community, to meet people, to talk to people, to build authentic relationships so that we can overcome the unfamiliarity that exists. And that's how I did it when I won. I'm sure Representative Lalonde can talk about how he won. But you have to really meet people, and you have to work twice as hard to be able to do it. The good news is you see all these young people, not just AOC, not just Rashida and Ilhan, but Maxwell Frost and Delia Ramirez and Jasmine Crockett and all of this energy. And I think that the future of this party and country is very, very bright. And we are building, and Engage is contributing to that. We're building post-Biden a real, I think there could be a real progressive future for this country.
Thank you. So I'm going to speak as an advocate, and obviously absolutely agree with Nada's point of view. If we need our voices to be heard, we need to organize ourselves, and that does include civic engagement in the way you described it. But taking the Utah example, I think one of the things apart from doing grassroots organizing, and trust is not a linear process. It needs to be reinforced from many different angles. So for us, what we did is we did utilize a lot of interfaith conversation. Utah is a very deeply religious state. Like I said, it is the home of Mormonism. What we've done is we've elevated the interfaith conversation to policy making. So when we talk about policy with our legislature, for example, we had a bill which was modeled on Muslim Civic Coalition's bill around athletic wear. We asked the legislature to look at all multicultural communities and let them modify their uniform according to their modesty standards, be that a person from Jewish background or Muslim background. And it got one of the highest number of votes last cycle. We've used, public health as building trust between communities. Radha, who's here, one of our community members who's here, helped us create these COVID clinics. There were people who did not want to go to government entities and take those shots, but bringing it to the mosques, we were able to inoculate so many more people. We've deployed this trust system for economic inclusion, for public health in various ways, and this work continues. It's not something that's just going to end. We have to keep innovating and keep building bridges.
I can just say ditto and move on. It's very important. I think it's an important process. Whenever we start any new venture, a relationship, at work, there's always an anxiety, there's always some doubt that comes in. But with compassionate, honest engagement, we can build the credibility and trust. And I was fortunate to do that. I am by nature a positive person and try to look into the commonalities and strength of other people. And when I was running and when I got elected, it was very clear to me there are two sets of people. One set of people, those are voters who elect you. The other set of people are your colleagues who help you pass the bills. So how do you approach? And in one-to-one relationship, one-to-one talking and communication, to tell them that who I am as a physician, as an American, as a Muslim, as a family man, what are my values, and then try to learn the other person, and then kind of try to build bridges. We talked about it, and I was very openly was saying that look, there will be 10-15% of issues we will never agree upon. But there are a whole bunch of issues, 70-80% that we will agree upon. Let's focus on that. Let's focus on issues that we can work together. And then, you can go back and take credit to your constituent you did it, but let's face it in that regard. So we did that. An example to give you is, ignorance that leads to fear, fear leads to hate. But when you engage, awareness comes, then there's compassion comes, and then you bring unity and strength. And I'm going to use this example here. I did the resolution on Muslim Day in Texas. Okay? Now, right before the resolution to be announced, if you're you know how the floor proceedings is, front mic, you do it, and back mic, you go for questions or what you have it. 5 minutes before my turn comes, one of my colleagues comes and says, Dr. Lalani, do you know there's an objection on back mic? In a good way, he was telling me that you may not have votes. If you're not confident, don't say it, don't go for it. So he was, I think he was saying in a good part of it. I said, I'm not aware of it, I've spoken to people. I see some running around happen, and then 2 people came to me and said, Dr. Lalani, walk with full confidence, you have votes. What it meant was those people walking were asking people, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, and then they came back to me. So when I read the resolution, I needed 76 out of 150. I got 138 yeses. So the news media comes and says, so-and-so was against you and he's against Islam, and what would you like to say? My comment was, I'm too busy celebrating 138 people. I don't have time for the 12. Okay? A few weeks after that, I did the first Ramadan resolution. You know what? That 12, out of that 12, 6 converted to yes. This time. And then the other 6 who were not, few of them come and kind of on the sidebar was telling me that I voted no, but I know you and you know my circumstance. I thought they don't need to explain to me. But they still came. There's still another hope to do that part. We did the first iftar inside the Capitol. Okay? And then what we did was I asked one of my Jewish colleagues to talk about Yom Kippur. I asked one of our Christian colleagues to talk about season of Lent. And then we discussed that, the essence is the same. The rituals are different. When they learned that, 2 non-Muslims fasted with us that day. So what I'm trying to tell you is engagement is important. And as we engage at any level, we're engaging at our level, but I would like to ask the community to engage at your level, at your schools, at your neighborhood, as your cities, with your friends. Engage. More and more they know about you, more and more you will build the bridges.
So, we're living in very unique states, great sizes, again, Utah, California, Texas, Michigan, and there is the question of, how do you protect your own identity and represent yourself and then that of your community amid the other stark views, and you kind of spoke to this a bit, but the other ways of knowing that there are certain policies that are necessary, essential, but it has not been clear because one, someone may feel, I'm not a part of that community, so what? Or it just may be like, I don't trust what you're telling me, or be polar opposites. So speak to in terms of how do you cross that divide? And I just go into the nods. You've already been talking about building allyship and solidarity. So I want to see that, whole scope. In what ways, how do you make yourself still true to who you are, but also make sure that you cross and build those bridges and have partners and true allies? I want to start with Mona, because you're nodding emphatically.
Once again, focusing on Utah, I think, very honestly, bridge building for us worked 2 ways. We are a small state. We have about now closing in of 65,000 Muslims. That means 1.1% of the state population. We have 14 mosques, and they are centered around different ethnic and linguistic sort of identities. So bringing us Muslims together on a single platform as to what we actually want as a community is a challenge enough, let alone talking to our legislature or our policy makers and so on. So I think one of the ways that we were able to do it is to run these threads parallel to each other. We have a long list of the firsts that we've had in the state. For example, we're the 2nd state in the country where Muslim Heritage Month was approved. We are also on record that none of our elected officials from this very red state have ever uttered a single word against Muslims, whereas all other states have. We also did, the first marking of the Bosnian genocide, and we are working with our Jewish community next year to do a larger commemoration. And the reason we had July marked as the Heritage Month was because of in solidarity with our Bosnian community. We've had First Muslim Day, we've had our mayors hosting us for Ramadan and many other things. But what really is fascinating is that when you post about, for example, this panel, and it may come as a surprise to you, but one of our leading rabbis from the state commented and said, the congressman joining you on your panel has done amazing anti-Semitism work, and we recognize him in Utah. So those are the kind of bridges and trust that we build with every community that's possible. I may not have answered all the questions, but I'm going to pass on and come back if there are questions.
So I think, to answer your question, this is why panels like this are important, and this is why institutions like Engage are important, to make sure that we, as Muslims and minority groups, have that voice and have that space. The first step we do in Engage is organize our communities, correct? So just to give you an example, and again, I'm going to lean back to the grassroots. I'm an organizer, grassroots are my life. Just this past year, Michigan was very instrumental, Engage Michigan was very instrumental with the trifecta win. And that means we were able to help candidates flip the House, flip the Senate, and protect our governor. Because we were able to do that, we were able to craft policies with other coalition members, meaning non-Muslim members, to pass a holiday package that included recognizing Eid as a statewide holiday. That also included passing that anti-hate crime legislation. And most importantly, enforcing driver's license for all, which gives undocumented immigrants driver's license. That means we're giving people, we have a large portion of our Muslim community who are immigrants, and they are fighting every single day for the right to exist. So we're helping them out by giving them those driver's licenses. I say all this to say is, first of all, it's important to organize our community. Second of all, take up that space and work with our coalition members to pass this policy.
I think it's so important that regardless of our identity, we feel comfortable speaking about the American narrative, and we not shy away from speaking as patriots. We shouldn't feel that if you're Muslim origin or Hindu origin or Indian origin that you can't address the issues of economic dislocation in the Midwest, or that you can't speak about national security, or that you can't speak about the American interest in the Middle East or China. And what I believe our communities should do is to take the rich heritage that we have and view that as additive to the American framework, and a view that what we're helping build of this incredible multiracial, multi-ethnic democracy, the first time you will see a cohesive democracy like that, the aspiration is actually the most patriotic of sentiments, and to define patriotism in this aspirational way. That's what I believe President Obama was able to do so successfully, which is why I think he won Wisconsin and Indiana and Ohio, because he articulated not just an inclusive vision, but he defined that inclusivity is synonymous with patriotism. And I think all of us need to try to work to do that, and not to accept the narrative that says that we're other or less American in our engagement.
This is very true. When people elect, they don't give you the power or the authority. They give you their faith and they give you their trust. And I think as a leader, we need to act, and we need to be all inclusive. There are issues that come. We need to have the mindset to see what is need and what is a want. And there's a difference between the two. What is important and what is urgent. And we need to make sure we stay focused. And then I think that's where, as I said, one set of people are your colleagues. You need to be comfortable with them. You don't bargain on your ethics or morals. But then there are things that are important to you and there's things that are important to others. And how do you come to a common ground and do something? Because when we are as a community, and a lot of times we forget that. And I am not unapologetic to remind that, don't we have hukuk of our neighbors? Do we ever set hukuk of a Muslim? It was never in that. Our ethics of faith is what, right? So then how can we judge? We need to be very non-judgmental and all-inclusive. The judgment is to the Lord to see the intentions and the action of the people or whatnot. We are not. So I think we need to focus on the common grounds. We need to focus on what is the need is there. And then that's where we will build bridges, right? And that's where I was successful in doing that. I'm so happy to say that. I'm very proud. I worked on 155 pieces of legislation in my first term. 36 of them has passed into law. 36. And that is healthcare, that is mental health, that is IT technology, that is our senior citizens, that is some local food and county bills. And that's what we need to look for. And I think as the more and more we do that, more and more will come together. So that is my message. As a leadership, we are doing it. But as a community, we need to be non-judgmental. We look into what are the issues that are affecting the majority, and let's work on that part. That is the urgency.
So, there's been a great deal of legislation I've been hearing that's passed, and these are successes that we should definitely applaud. But, for the most part, we know apathy exists, and we also understand that a lot of people think that this is something that they want to touch as a third wheel. Speak to certain challenges and unique issues that's particular for your state, and what would you suggest for community members to be a part of that advocacy, be a part of that work, and make sure that this is something that is gradually built upon some of the successes that you've been able to name? I want to actually start with you, Scott.
I think, as I said to a lot of our other friends and too, that any law that has come, has come by accident. It has come because somebody thought about it, somebody was passionate about to work for it, somebody advocated for that, and then it came and it passed, right? So my message to the community is to get engaged. Time for sofa politics is gone. And that's very easy to do and point fingers. The change that you're looking for, you have to be that change. So get engaged is my first part. Get engaged in civic engagement, get engaged with advocacy, get engaged with non-profits, social, cultural institutions, whatever that is your interest in. Get engaged and be that voice. And that's where we can work together. Number two is vote. If you don't vote, you don't exist. And this has happened, this is an apathy of our community that's happened. And I'm sorry to be blunt, a lot of our people are here physically, but their heart and mind is back home. They would know every detail about what is happening. But if you ask them, who's your city council member? When was the last election? No clue. So home is not where our forefathers are buried. Home is where our grandchildren are going to live and be educated. That's my message.
Sorry.
Shahad, forgive me, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so just making sure to identify the challenges there have been for unique issues in your state, like how to bring community members over to also be the advocates that help you with those changes.
Absolutely. One thing I want to say is local policy matters. Local policy is where the change is at. Through our experience in Engage, through the doors we've knocked, we realized that the biggest barrier to passing good policy is what? Voting, right? No, it's not that our community's not voting, it's that they don't have access access or the education to vote, right? So what's unique about Engage is we are knocking low propensity voters. That means voters who have not been approached by the Democratic or the Republican Party, and Muslims are low propensity voters. So what we do when we've been knocking, we realize that a lot of our constituents don't even know what time what time the polls are open, when the elections are. So the first thing that we have to do is voter education. And when we learn that knowledge from the doors, we actually went and lobbied our Dearborn City Clerk, just a little footnote. Dearborn has one of the largest populations of Muslims in the country and a sizable Arab American population, and we still do not have translated ballots, right? So we knew that language access was one of the barriers to voting. So we met with our city clerk. We thought it was going to be an easy ask, but the city clerk did not see value in that. So after 2 years of advocacy, we realized it was an ideology issue with him. So what did we do? We organized and we worked on electing mayor and city council that had our values so we can override the city clerk. So in 2021, we elected Abdullah Hamid, Dearborn's first Muslim Arab American mayor, and a city council, and we were able to override the city clerk, and we were able to pass translated ballots in Dearborn for the first time in history. And this is so important. Just to let you know, we do allow translators in the ballot, but it's about voting in dignity, right? People like my mother, who's naturalized in Arabic, can vote without a translator. So when you empower our community and we educate them how important voting is, that's when they're going to be proactive. So I guess that's my approach to that. But again, if we want to pass good policy, we need to make sure that our community is fully enfranchised.
That's an inspiring story, and Michigan is just an inspiring state and what Engage and the forces there have done. I do have to learn from the Texas state rep how to pass more laws. 36, I've only done 6 in my 7 years, so we'll get some tips. You're off to a great start, and I love what you're doing in Utah. I'd say this, look, everyone in this room by definition is engaged. I mean, who comes on a Labor Day weekend to listen to a political panel? But I think that the challenge is that we aren't bold enough yet in our aspirations. We don't realize how close we actually are to a fundamental shift in this country. A shift of policies that finally have progressive values of an inclusive society, of providing everyone with health care, child care, of making sure people have a dignified wage, of having a just foreign policy that moves beyond the colonizer's model of the world. And I think what happened is we were inspired in 2008, we built all this energy, and then Donald Trump happened, and it's like we forgot how close we were coming. When Bernie Sanders almost became president of the United States, I thought, I would co-chair his campaign, I thought that was phenomenal, the energy that we had. And I believe that we've got to have the boldness where we get up. This is why I endorsed Abdul when he ran for governor. They said he's 32 and he hasn't run for anything. I said, yeah, but when Bill Clinton just got up and ran for Congress or the governor, no one said anything about that. So why can't a 32-year-old Muslim American get up and run for governor? Why can't they get up and run for Congress or president? I think we don't know our own power. We don't know our own ability to organize and mobilize. We don't have to pay deference anymore to the traditional political leadership. We can have a self-confidence. And with that self-confidence, people respond to that. And that's the last point I'll make. It's what I saw with Bernie Sanders. Americans love strength. And that strength doesn't mean the bravado of a Donald Trump. The strength means the strength of vision and conviction. And if we come out with that, I think we can inspire people to really change the country.
All right, 30 seconds. Once again, in Utah, as an organizer, I think the challenges that we see is weaponizing of our own religion against us. So one of the case studies that I put in front of you is access to reproductive health. Utah is one of the states that put in strictest laws around it. So based on faith values, Utah Muslim Civic League joined a coalition of interfaith organizations to file an amicus brief against us. Abortion is a political issue in this country, but access to reproductive health for a community as Muslims who are 1/3, reporting incomes at the poverty level, this is an important issue. So we don't want our faith used against us. That's one challenge. Secondly, obviously the APD of voters and everything. And the way we are facing that challenge is to use our platform for voter education, but also providing hybrid services. So getting the community involved in different economic inclusion processes, providing access to halal food in the food pantries, and so on and so forth. But this is something that is once again going to keep going on, and we have to keep pivoting and learning how the community wants change and how we can change with them.
Nice.
One other point I would like to add here is engagement and read about things, because the media right now, you will hear a lot of things, and what I say is fear sells, but fear does not engage. At this point, you have that word in your palm of your hands, and then we need to get engaged. There are laws, there are bills that are passed. In Texas, you will hear the DEI and the election bills that all the media is publicizing. Those are wrong bills, but what about the smaller victory that has happened? I tell my people, healthcare is a problem and we need to work on it. I had a Texas way a Medicaid expansion bill, which was not heard. But another bill, which postpartum mothers from 3 months to become 12 months care. I thought that was a small victory. And then, we have insurance companies to cover now wigs for the cancer patients. That's a small victory. I have a mental health bill. So what I'm trying to say is get engaged, get to know that a lot of good things are also happening. So you can have confidence back. You can talk to other people and bring them. And as our colleagues have said, vote. If you don't vote, you don't exist. So you need to vote.
Nice segue to the Q&A. Obviously, a lot of questions here, so get at it, inshallah. I'm going to try to point them when necessary at certain panelists. But let's start with, there's several questions here, pretty much speaking to, again, some what we've already discussed, like how to get involved, but there's a pointed question in, neither party works for us. It works contrary to who we are, our values. Why still get involved? Like, how are we supposed to, make things change for the better when we're not valued or appreciated or seen as Muslims? And again, of course, Congress Rana, beyond that, any identities that you also lead to. I want to actually kind of direct this to the activists, because I know you work with the youth a great deal.
If you're not going to do it for yourself, do it for the other people who need your help. So one thing, what I did for my organizers in 2022, there was a lot of apathy, right? To be frank, there was a lot of apathy when Bernie lost. They told me, Netta, what is Biden going to do for me? I'm like, if you feel like you don't need the Biden presidency for your liberation, what about your Yemeni neighbors who are getting deported every single day? Because we endorsed Biden, because we held them accountable on day one to repeal the Muslim ban, we were able to repeal the Muslim ban. I live in Dearborn, and I've had literally neighbors being deported day by day by Trump's harmful bans. So I say, if you're not going to do it for yourself, do it for others who need it.
I really don't feel disengagement is the way to go. We value something, if we value ourselves, then we would need to value our time and our efforts. It may be a longer loop to do the work, but you have to stay engaged.
I think the question, is the wrong assumption. The politics of the party works for the voters. Are you a voter? If you don't, then you don't have a right to make a comment. You need to. Number two, I see a lot of entrepreneurs, our community entrepreneurs sitting here, right? You have a business. You will gear your business towards your client and what the majority of the business is asking for, or you would put in a shelf when 1%, 2% shows up to buy something, you'll put that on your shelf, or you put something which hundreds of people are coming and asking on your front shelf. Our community is at that level. We have great aspirations, but we are lazy. Come, get engaged. If you vote, I can bet you, if all these people sitting in this room and we take charge of 10% people each to bring vote, next time we will not have a panel asking for them. I can bet you those politicians will be sitting here in the line, voting to hear from you. So engagement is important. And that's the thing is that the party is not isolating you all. They're working for their voters. Become the voter.
So there's another series of questions about specific questions of why I work with Democrats, why I work with Republicans, especially when it comes to issues such as LGBTQIA plus rights, abortion. How would you still press for people to be involved in spite of those contradictions that they may feel may be with themselves? I want to direct this to the Congressman and Luna.
I have a quick answer. We don't have a choice. We're a red state. We have to work with Republicans. So, and the way we do it is invoking the moral code.
Well, the first thing on the party question is, this representative alluded to that, you get to define what the party is. It's not that the party is a status quo entity. And Bernie Sanders wasn't even a Democrat, and he almost defined the entire agenda of the Democratic Party. And any one, he would have defined the Democratic Party. Now, when I look at when I was growing up, my parents could not get a meeting with a staff member to a member of Congress. The idea that you would have 5 Indian Americans and Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib, this was fanciful. So we have come an enormously long way. And to young people, I often say cynicism and empathy has to be an earned right. You haven't fought hard enough. You weren't beaten on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. You didn't fight in the fight for civil rights. You haven't built the sacrifices that have gone into America. And they said, well, bro, we can make this change in a company. It takes 6 months. Why can't the government work like that? And I said, are you kidding? We've had 250 years of slavery in this country, 100 years of Jim Crow, hundreds of years of colonialism. We're representing the part of the greatest power in the history of the world, and you expect to have change overnight? That's naive. And no previous generation has had change overnight. Our generation is the most privileged. We haven't had the sacrifices of the King generation, of the Gandhi generation, of the Mandela generation. I think it is an abdication of our duty to not finish the job of fighting for dignity and freedom and human rights when we're so close and so many others have sacrificed so much. So I believe we have an obligation to be engaged. And if we are engaged, we will make change. And on the particulars of the issue of transgender rights and LGBTQ rights, the first thing to say is that you have politicians right now who look at the deindustrialization in this country, who look at the economic dislocation in this country, who look at the fact that the American dream is slipping away, and they say we're going to blame someone for that. And they don't really care what they fill in that blame. Some days they say let's blame the Muslims. Some days they say let's blame the Indians outsourcing. Some days they say let's blame the Chinese. Some days they say let's blame the Mexicans. Some days they say let's blame those who are transgender. What they don't want to say is we need real economic policy to redevelop this country in the middle class. We need to hold corporations accountable. That's hard to say. So they put in and they fill in the blanks. And we can't fall victim to that by allowing them to pit one community against another that is marginalized. That doesn't mean that we can't have honest conversations with respect about how we educate young people, about what communities want and how to educate them and engage in dialogue. But we should be unified in saying that we will have no tolerance for bigotry, for bullying, for picking on any marginalized community, whether they be Muslim, whether they be LGBT, whether they be transgender.
Final question.
Sure. Statement. I want to say that, me too, I'm dissatisfied with both the Democratic Party and Republican Party, but we're here planting the seeds, and movement building takes time. It's a generational effort. So if you're unhappy with both parties, what we need to do, I'm sorry, I'm going to say this again, we need to go vote and register people to vote, because the reality is, I'm going to say it, the Muslim voting bloc is just not strong enough yet. Until we get strong, until we go out, that is when the change happens, and it's not going to happen overnight.
So I'm thinking, since we're talking about this a little bit about state public policy, we know that we're not in a vacuum. So we know things that happen around the world ultimately impacts the communities here. And so while I greatly appreciate your appearance here, Congressman, there's a lot of questions, of course, asking about your decision to invite Modi, and to think of the implications of such a stated invitation when it comes to Islamophobia, when it comes to certain voices. You spoke to some of those in your response, what it means for human rights to be upheld and celebrated, but there may be mixed signals or just flat out disappointing responses to it. So, for this opportunity, can you please speak to your decision, but also to what avenues, since you're here with the Muslim community, to support the human rights of Muslims in India, and of course fighting against Islamophobia here around the world?
Well, that's a very good question. I am the co-chair of the U.S.-India caucus, and in that capacity, of course, supported the Prime Minister's visit to the United States. The President had hosted him at the state dinner, and we had hosted him to speak to the joint session of Congress. I understand that that was upsetting to some people. Why is the President hosting him? Why is the Congress hosting him? But my view has always been that we have to engage, and that we have to speak candidly, as I have, about the violence in Manipur and condemn that. We have to speak candidly, as I did, about the violence in Haryana with Muslim leaders talking about the demolition of homes and being targeted, and condemn that. But we have to be doing this not just in a vacuum, but in ways that we actually are in the room in these conversations. So I led a delegation, bipartisan delegation, to India and to build on the strategic relationship. But there I also met Muslim leaders from Haryana. I met Tushar Gandhi, who was a great-grandson of Mahatma Gandhi. I met with representatives of the Kukis. And I raised, as did Jasmine Crockett and others, these issues directly with the leadership of the country. And I had a simple point. I said that diversity is going to strengthen both the relationship between India and the United States and both economies. That the United States has a strategic partnership with India, and there are many reasons for this, but that it has to be based on liberal, pluralistic values. So that will be my continued commitment, to build this relationship and engagement without shirking from speaking up for human rights, for pluralism, and without shirking from meeting with the groups that are advocating for this. And I would submit humbly that I'm probably one of the highest American officials that have gone to India, have taken these meetings. I believe that others should be engaged in these meetings too when they go to India.
And before we conclude, just one last note. There's a delegation here, Crimean Tatars, with the quote, "We're Crimean Tatars that have been genocide for almost 2 centuries after Soviet Russian invasion. We'd like to come present documents, pictures and videos. We'd like to inform you that Canada has recognized it's a genocide." So the delegation is here. We want to ask you to present that as you exit, and want to thank each and every one of you. Can you please share how to find and support your organizations or your office website for those who are in office? Well, then start first.
For us, it's easy. Our social media puts out everything that we do. It's Utah MCL, both on Facebook as well as Instagram. And other than that, keep Utah on your leisure travels. It is a beautiful state, and when you do come out there, look us up. We can hook you up with a lot of good stuff that happens in the community.
Okay, so we are very busy in Engage, Michigan. We have a few programs running. We are about to start our emerging leaders training. We have our Muslim Michigan Civic Table if you ever want to be a part of it. We're always looking for interns, and most importantly, we are recruiting for a ton of organizers for 2024, digital and field organizers. So if you want to get involved, please see me, and please visit our website, engageusa.org. Thank you so much.
I'm at Ro Khanna. If you want to tweet nice things about me, please, at Ro Khanna. Feel free. If you want to say negative things, feel free too. I love the civic engagement, and I think the most important thing is respectful dialogue in communities. And I think that that's what's missing, not just in the South Asian community or Muslim, but in our country. We've got to figure out how we start to talk to each other again with civility and respect, even when we disagree, and how we do that on these forums. And I try to engage even with my critics on social media. So, at Ro Khanna.
My message again would be engage. Engage whatever your passion is. Is it neighborhood, city, federal, state? Learn the office so you can ask the right questions. I think part of the frustration happens is the wrong question goes to the person, and you have expectations. I think if you would get engaged properly, know what office board does, so you can have the accountability. And then so engage. Our office, again, you can volunteer for us, you can donate. It's an important part. Uncle Sam is important, we need that. So if you can donate, you can participate, you can engage. If you want to be part of policy or internship, please do so. Dr. Lalani for Texas.com, which is Dr. Lalani, Lalani, FOR, Texas.com. Thank you.
And with that, we'll conclude. Let's thank each of the panelists once again. Representative from Texas, Dr. Suleiman Lolani, Luna Banura, Nada Nuti, and Congressman Ro Khanna of California. I want to also thank ISNA for the opportunity to moderate, as well as their organizations and the Muslim Civic Coalition, which is I'm a member of. There will be 2 more panels that is coordinated by the Muslim Civic Coalition. And to follow us and look at the bills and other advocacy efforts, look up MuslimCivicCoalition.org. With that, greet you with blessings of Assalamu Alaikum. Enjoy the rest of ISNA. Shukran. Assalamu Alaikum.
I see you. we'll be starting the next session. The next session will be Families in Crisis at 4:45. So if you please stay seated and we will start in a few minutes.
Yeah, from Canada. From California. The congressman in California. Yeah. He's in. Yeah. That's right. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's nice of him. It's very nice of him. Yes.
Assalamu alaikum. Can I request all the panelists who's going to be speaking in the next session to be here on the podium in a few minutes? Sheikh Kifar, Sheikh Hassan, Sheikh Rizwan.
Very good.
And we will be starting in a few minutes.
Very good.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Thank you for coming here. They went to Yale. Yeah.
So sorry.
Yale, yeah.
Sure, I can.
Assalamualaikum everyone. Again, this is the next session starting in a few minutes. The next session is Families in Crisis, hosted by CIOGC, and we will be starting in a few minutes. I will be your moderator, Rashad Khan. I am the past chairman for the Council of Islamic Organization of Greater Chicago. We would love to have you here. So please be seated and we'll get started in a few minutes.
Everyone, I know it's been recorded, the taking outside, hang out.
Hello.
Everyone, please start drinking out. The next session is about to begin. Want to be respectful of all of them. Please start emptying, please. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum. It's 4:30 and we will get started. Our next session.
Security so
Our
that we
next
can
session
escort
is
out
very
the
important for
congressman.
all those who are
उनको
here
वहाँ जब बैठे
and waiting
हैं
to
send the
hear.
security so that we need to escort him out.
Very near and dear to all of us, the Families in Crisis. This is hosted by Council of Islamic Organization of Greater Chicago, here locally, and our imams from the Chicago and the neighboring districts.
Sorry.
The flag.
Shake your file, we have a photographer here who can take some pictures, so if you want to get started. First, I want to welcome you all. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for being here, and I'm sure you're having a really good time this weekend hosted by ISNA, and as we're all celebrating ISNA's success of 60 years of service and navigating the way forward. So we first want to thank you all for being here today and being here with us, especially for the special topic that we have selected of families in crisis. And I think this topic, like I said before, is all near and dear to all of us. And we want to make sure that we have enough time to cover the topic, important topic, and then also make sure that we are hearing from you as well. So let me reintroduce again. My name is Prashad Khan. I am the past chairman for the Council of Islamic Organization of Greater Chicago. The Council is the largest Muslim organization in the state of Illinois, and we have been representing the Muslim community for past 31 years. We recently celebrated 31 years of our service, and the service is not only in the interfaith dialogue, civic and political engagement, education forum, and also Zakat Chicago, which is an arm of CRGC for local collection and local distribution. So we have been participating in interfaith dialogues, politically engaging, and then also representing our Muslim community. So not taking enough time, we have an esteemed panelist here today with us. The process is we're going to I'm going to introduce each of them, and then we're going to let each of them speak, and then we will leave the Q&A session at the tail end, and then we will have closing remarks by Azam Nizamuddin for this session. So with that, let me start with the introduction first. First, we have Sheikh Rifa Mustafa. I don't think he needs any introduction. He has a page long of his bio, and I don't want to read that, but however, I want to state that he is part of the Olin Park Community Center and has been serving the Muslim community in the land of Chicago for many years. CRGC conducts annually a program in the month of Ramadan highlighting our local imams, and we have a program on CRGC.live talking about the imams and what they do, and also a session called Know Your Imam. So the reason I'm saying all of that, not going into the introduction, is how he has been loved by the community. So when we had that program, we say, what do you like about your imam? And we asked Imam to share some of the things that he likes. And Imam in that session mentioned that he likes certain ice cream. And what happened, one day after his prayer, when he gets to his house, there's a bucket of ice cream sitting in his front door. That's an ice cream that he likes, and that's a level of love that he gets from our community, and that's what I wanted to give the introduction for him. That's the love that he has for his community and the community that he loves around the Chicagoland area. So Sheikh Rifai is with us, and he's also in council, has an Imam Council, and he's the chair for that council as well. So thank you, Imam, for being here. Inshallah, I'll move on to the next one. The next Imam is Sheikh Hassan Ali. Obviously, Sheikh Hassan Ali also doesn't need any introduction in the Chicago. He's an Imam of Mecca Center. And also, like an icebreaker, I'm using this as an introduction. if you need to Google Sheikh Hassan, he will be on the top because he is so active on the social media and every place, and you will be surprised how much he does day in and day out, and not only in the land of Chicago, but also other states as well. He goes and talks and well represented. So he has a lot of following on the social media, so that's how I call social media chef, and he's very famous in the Chicagoland area and other places as well. So Sheikh Hassan is with us, so thank you for joining Sheikh Hassan. And the next to him is Sheikh Hassan Ali.